So last night, the 89th Academy Awards was held at the Dolby Theatre in Los Angeles, Hollywood. I'd heard somewhere something about the Roosevelt Hotel, but I guess that was misinformation. I'd obviously read that wrong somewhere. What I want to do is just talk about the basic awards and then a little bit about the event itself. The thing that everyone is talking about is the mix up for Best Picture. What had happened was apparently an envelope had been handed to Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. It was actually Faye Dunaway read it out. A lot of people are saying Warren Beatty. It was actually Faye Dunaway who read it out. She jokingly said, I'll do it because she, like playing on his nerves, I guess, or something like that. It was an in joke. But basically, yeah, he read out that La La Land had won Best Picture. La La Land had already been nominated 14 times, matching 1950's All About Eve and 1997's Titanic. Um, so anyway, that was read out. But 5 minutes later, there was clearly confusion going on, and then they said it was a mistake, and the best picture was actually Moonlight. Um, One of the people from La La Land was very gracious. I'm not sure who it was, but because I'm not that familiar with the film, but he was very gracious in saying that it was Moonlight, and that was something that there's been a lot of talk about this, and there's been inevitable comparisons to the Miss Universe competition of 2015 when Steve Harvey read out the wrong winner. Big mix up between Miss Colombia and Miss Philippines. So these are some of the results from last night. That's what everyone's talking about because first time it's happened in 89 years. Um, in some ways, I'm pleased it happened, and this is why. Um, I'll come back to the actual awards in a second. But the reason I'm pleased it happened is not because I get a kick out of other people's humiliation. I feel for everyone involved. I feel for Warren Beatty, for Faye Dunaway, for whoever made the gaff, and for both film crews. It's awkward all around. But I'm pleased it happened because it is overshadowing all the other nonsense that I was talking about. So with everyone discussing this, hopefully there will be a bit of a focus away from all the diversity virtue signaling. And I really am leaning towards the view that that's what this is. Um, I made my views on that pretty clear in the last video, so I'm not going to go over it and beat a dead horse, so to speak. Anyway, best picture, like I say, Moonlight. It was about an African American man who and going through his life from adolescence to being a teenager to being a man. Apparently had gay fame as well. I really can't say much about the films because I haven't actually seen either La La Land or Moonlight. Best Director, Damien Chazelle for La La Land. Other nominations were Hacksaw Ridge, Moonlight, Manchester by the Sea, and Arrival. Of those, Arrival is the only one I've seen. I have to say, Arrival, I think I made a film review of it. Very interesting film, very original in the sense that it's an alien invasion film, but unlike any other. Best Actor, Casey Affleck for Manchester by the Sea. Best Actress, Emma Stone for La La Land. Best Supporting Actor, Mahershala Ali for Moonlight. And Best Supporting Actress, Viola Davis for Fences. Um, Best Original Screenplay, Manchester by the Sea, Kenneth Lonergan. Best Adapted Screenplay, Moonlight, Barry Jenkins and Tarell Alvin McCraney. Best Animated Feature Film, Zootopia. Best Foreign Language Film, The Salesman, by Ashghar Farhadi. There was another memorable moment when a representative of Ashghar Farhadi got up and said that he was boycotting the ceremony. She thanked everyone for the support, but said that he was boycotting the ceremony on the grounds of the executive travel ban. He is, of course, Iranian. Now, I don't know a great deal about this director, but I've seen a lot of debate on this. There's some who are really attacking him and saying it's Iranian hypocrisy. However, I think it's important to not assume that just because he's Iranian, he is therefore the Iranian government. He's taken issue as an Iranian and against the travel ban. Now, as I understand it, Mr. Farhadi has been very vocal about Iran's human rights abuses and is no fan of the theocracy there. So I think sometimes when we criticize people for, and to be quite honest, I've probably been guilty of this at times. Sometimes when we criticize people for assuming a position of defending their country, we assume that means they're defending the government of that country, and it's not always the case. So, like I say, Ashgar Farhadi has apparently been critical of the Iranian government, but basically she made a speech saying that the executive travel ban was inhumane. Whatever your position is on that would be your perspective on that. I am against a travel ban, though I wouldn't necessarily use some of the language that's being used. Anyway, so that's it's one of those moments like Marlon Brando refusing the award and Native American young Apache woman getting up to explain why in 1972, 73. Best documentary, OJ Made in America. Best documentary short subjects, The White Helmets, of course, about Syria. Again, I think that was another feature that was impacted by the travel ban. Best live action short film, Sing by Christoph Deek. Best animated short film, Piper, Alan Barilaro, and Mark Sondheimer. Best original score, La La Land. Best original song, City of Stars, La La Land. Best sound editing, Arrival. I'd agree with that. There was some, I can see where that came from. Best sound mixing, Hacksaw Ridge, Kevin O'Connell, Andy Wright, Robert Mackenzie, and Peter Grace. Best production design, La La Land. Best cinematography, La La Land. Best makeup and hairstyling, Suicide Squad. Best costume design, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I would absolutely second that, because the visual effects in that film were fantastic. Best film editing, Hacksaw Ridge, John Gilbert. Best visual effects, The Jungle Book, Robert DeGatto, Adam Valdez, Andrew R. Jones, and Dan Lemon. And in the in memorandum sequence, um, I'll just see if there was actually any reference to Bill Paxton. Of course, he died just yesterday, passed away. Um, by all accounts, he was a sound bloke, really down to earth, and I always remember his role as Brock Lovett in Titanic, which happens to be my favourite film. So I immediately thought of that. Also, of course, Twister, but some other people who were named in the memorandum sequence: George Kennedy, Gene Wilder, Gary Marshall, Patty Duke, Emmanuel Riva, John Hurt, Om Puri, Debbie Reynolds, Carrie Fisher, Shasha Gabor, William Peter Blatty, Tyrus Wong, Nancy Reagan, among others. So that's always an interesting section. Kenny Baker too played R2D2 in Star Wars. So there is a lot to go on there. It's certainly been perhaps one of the more memorable Oscars. The only thing I want to say with this, this wasn't really going to be a really in-depth philosophical video, but I do hope the whole diversity thing has been put to bed now. I will say this though, if we are talking about diversity, um, if there is a shortage of minority representation, I would say it is far more noticeable perhaps with Asian Pacific representation or lack thereof than African American. I would say there's actually quite a lot of African American representation. There certainly was last night. Um, so I don't know if it's going to be this cavalcade whereby every time the Oscars come around, it's last year the whole Oscars so white thing was especially focused on the supposed lack of black representation. Now, is next year going to be a supposed lack of Hispanic representation, and the year after that, Asian American representation, etc. I do staunchly believe in opportunity, and like I said in the previous video, that there may be some things that I am not aware of. But I will say this: anybody on six or seven figures, as far as I'm concerned, has no right to be complaining about their situation in life. Not in a world where people are facing famine, not in a world where people are displaced by war, not in a world where refugees are facing real hardships. I just cannot feel that sorry for any actor. And I think that's something a lot of people would agree on. Final point, another minor controversy of the night, and I do think it was minor. No question, some people will try to blow it up into something it's not. Um, well, actually, there's two controversies. I'll just briefly touch on them. Firstly, Jimmy Kimmel, who was the host, apparently made an inappropriate joke about he had the skit where these tourists had come into the Dolby Theatre. I didn't see the sequence, but he said something about an Asian woman's name, and then her husband's name was Patrick, and oh, that's a real name. Basically, it was a politically incorrect joke. Well, of course, the Twitterati are out with the pitchforks and yelling about being racist and so on. It's just, to me, this is just politically correct nonsense. It was a little bit off colour. It was perhaps a little bit risky, but seriously, do people have nothing better to do than to make an issue out of things like this? I really, I really think, in the grand scheme of things, those sort of complaints just, if the lady herself was offended, that might be another matter, but I don't know. Some people just seem to find any reason to be offended. And final point, and this is on another controversy, Casey Affleck won Best Actor for his role in Manchester by the Sea. Um, Apparently, in 2010, he was caught up in inappropriate sexual conduct allegations. Now, there was a lot of editorials, and I've been looking up some of these about whether he deserved his award or not. I haven't seen Manchester by the Sea. Actually, I was thinking about going to see that film. But he seems like a pretty good actor from what I gather. I've seen him in his role in Jesse James, or to give it its full title, Jesse James and the Card Robert Ford. Or, uh, that's not the title. Something along those lines. Anyway, I was watching it the other day. Um, I do have this problem of trial by media, and people sometimes cannot seem to tell the difference between alleged and guilty. Now, I don't know if he was guilty or not. If he was guilty, does that mean he doesn't deserve recognition for his acting? Well, it could be argued they're two separate issues. There's a lot of people who have done unsavory things, have talent. So I don't know if you want to go down the line of people being absolutely pure, but I do feel uneasy about vilifying someone over allegations. Now, I'm not saying he's innocent. Apparently, he says the whole thing was fiction and he questioned the motives of the lawyers. But the implication of that is that the two women who accused him of that were liars, which is a pretty serious charge in itself. So it's a classic thing of his word against, I was going to say hers, but in this case theirs. He might well have been guilty, and we shouldn't underestimate the fact that there are some guys who have an arrogant attitude that they can do whatever they want. On the other hand, there have also been cases of women frankly dying, um, and it's been exposed at a later date. So I think people just need to put off judgment until they absolutely know for certain. And I certainly wouldn't go down the lines of someone has been accused of something, therefore they don't deserve the award. To me, that is perverse. It's very different if they have been guilty of something. And sometimes things do get revealed at later dates. I mean, Marlon Brando's image has been really tarnished with revelations that he basically raped his co-star in Last Tango to Paris. Um, or if it wasn't rape, it wasn't far off based on her testimony. Um, People are complex. This was the same Marlon Brando who, was a great liberal hero for Native Americans. So people are complex, and I think that it's important that when someone is accused of something, this might even be worth another video, but for now I'll leave it here. When someone is accused of something, accused, that is not the same as being guilty. And I am not saying that the guy's innocent. The only people that know is him and the women that accused him. They're the only people who really know the truth. If he is guilty, it obviously makes it worse that he's saying that he isn't. And if he's innocent, that makes their position very dubious. But now, either way, I don't think it should be brought into something like the Oscars unless he was found guilty. That would be a different matter. But digging up someone's past from 6 years ago um, on an allegation to me is a bit below the belt. I mean, a court of law found that there was no case. So from what I understand, I might be wrong about that, but if I am, please feel free to correct me. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Did you watch the event? Here it wasn't screened. I have Sky TV, but couldn't find it on any of my channels. And I'm not one of these people that really, really follows celebrity news. But the Oscars is the Oscars. It is the biggest event out there. And I must admit, as a film fan, I love film. Yeah, I have some interest in it. Okay, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts. Final point. Have you seen the films? Have you seen the acting performances? Do you think they were well deserved? Cheers.